Hello everyone, I'm Kevin, otherwise known as Forum BX257, here to bring you another 1980s G.I. Joe review. And for this entire month, I'll be taking a look at the 1988 series of Iron Grenadiers, starting with their leader, the second version of Destro, and his Despoiler Hovercraft. Now, Destro debuts his new outfit in the old Marvel comic run of G.I. Joe in issue 69, where he specifically changes out of his very distinctive original into this uniform just to symbolize his break from Cobra and the start of his new army. The Despoiler makes its first appearance in the old Marvel comic run of G.I. Joe in issue 87. It doesn't make any cartoon appearances, however. Destro, however, does make an appearance in this uniform, first in 1989 in the Deke animated 5-part miniseries Operation Dragonfire in the very first part.
And Destro only comes with one accessory, and that is his gold sword. Like the 1987 Gung Ho figure, it's rather unfortunate that the sword is molded in the sheath and is non-removable. You do have to be careful with this, as this is gold plastic, and you'll often find on the aftermarket that this chain bit here is usually cracked right off. However, that chain does serve a purpose. As you can see on the side of the figure, he has a little hook, and you just hook it on like that. So rather than an accessory weapon, it's more like a decorative piece and part of his outfit. And speaking of which, this part isn't meant to be removable, but he does come with a cloth cape, just sort of permanently affixed on one shoulder, just sort of draped dramatically, like so. I'll now compare the second version of Destro to the original 1983 version. Now, as you can see, the heads are actually quite similar, despite the new version being, well, gold instead of silver. It almost looks like the same sculpt, and it probably is a modification of the original. Whereas the original 1983 could only swivel, back and forth like that. The new version is actually a ball joint. So this isn't just reused and made of gold chrome. It is actually quite significant. I believe the mouth area is also a little bit different as well. Now, the original Destro was a taller figure than what the normal for the line was. And in fact, the second version of Destro is the same way. Where, as you can see, there's an Iron Grenadier figure, and even with his head crest, he's still not as tall as either version of Destro. Destro was both a character and an action figure, is my all-time favorite G.I. Joe bad guy, and with his gold and his cape, he really seems more like a leader than his first version. Taking a look at some of his details. Of course, the entire Iron Grenadier line has that sort of sci-fi Art Deco look. So he has these rather unnecessary fins on the top here, and what looks like a little red scarf, or perhaps part of the cape, sort of tucked into the front of his chest there. One thing that I do sort of lament is the fact that he does not come with any rocket launchers on his wrist. I would have loved to see that. One thing a lot of people tend to really dislike is his sort of asymmetrical boots there. What it is that one boot is actually raised up here, and this part with the studs here, that's not actually his boot, that's actually part of his thigh. His boot actually begins right down here. So what the sculptors have done is lower one of the boots down, sort of leg warmer style, so it doesn't interfere with this molded in gun here, which is a really nice little touch. Unfortunately, it sort of doesn't come off very well. Unfortunately, because this is all sort of black plastic, and most people, again, just sort of assume that that's the top of the boot, so it looks like he's sort of wearing two different boots when he's really not. And Destro came with a heavily armed little hovercraft called the Despoiler. Other than the seat, the Despoiler also has this neat feature of rotating guns. And they elevate as well. But they rotate on a very unusual system, this sort of big ring. It also comes with a pair of tiny missiles. And they just sort of plug into those holes. Just sort of plug one in halfway just to simulate one firing off if you don't want to actually have it out loose. On the bottom we have jets, and on the back we have those same jets repeated. So you have two jets which give the imaginary illusion of a vertical takeoff, and of course the jets at the back allowing it to move forward. One thing that the Despoiler is known for is a color plastic difference in this gold plastic. And yes, this gold plastic, it can tend to be brittle over time, so I wouldn't really stress any of the parts. The gold rear fins come off, and this sort of back engine can come off. However, later on, they redid the plastic, and instead of this more, I would guess, I would call it a yellowy gold version of the plastic. It does have some metallic in it. There's actually sort of a caramel brown sort of gold plastic, and while I think that version might have been a bit sturdier than this, all the other Iron Grenadier toys were actually made of this plastic. So if you want to have them side by side, you'll notice the difference there. Now, I don't know if you can really see that in there so well with my lighting, but there's not a lot of room for the figure's feet. And there's even some notches right there, right in the middle, which are supposed to separate the feet, but of course that gets in the way of the feet. So here I'll have a Destro with his legs just very slightly bent forward, and of course separated so they can go in between that notch. And yeah, it's so yeah, that's about as good as you're going to get with him just sort of sticking out like this. It almost reminds me of the 1982 Mobat, where Steeler would sort of sit in that top turret with most of his body up out of the turret permanently. And this, well, to be honest, I don't mind the Despoiler's design at all, but I really wish this thing were bigger, or at least had more leg room so that the figure can sit in there a little bit better. A hidden bonus to the Despoiler is the fact that you can line up those vertical thrusters and place them on these top nubbins of the Demon. So you just line it up here, pop it on, and now you have your leader docked on top of one of the most powerful tanks in his army. And now it's time for... Does a modern figure fit in it? As usual, I'll be using my 2009 Rise of Cobra Footloose figure as my example of a modern figure. Let's just Squeeze them in here. And I'll have to admit, I'm quite surprised that this thing really does fit. Perhaps the extra articulation in the legs really helps squeeze into that really narrow spot in the front. Well, that's all the time I have right now. Please check out my Facebook page for more information and behind-the-scenes photos for these reviews. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for next time to see another 1980s G.I. Joe toy review. See you then.